Yeah, thank you for sharing, because it's a vital point. At one stage, psychologists would say that anxiety and depression are comorbid. In other words, they tend to present together. But now, just like you've explained, psychologists are changing their framework and they're saying, really, it's different ends of the same disorder. So one end is where the brain completely underfunctions, such as depression, very little motivation or energy. And at the other end, you have anxiety, where parts of the brain overfunction and operate.
Yep. So what's the treatment?
Well, the great thing about what we've been talking about, these holistic measures in particular, if you went to a doctor, they would give you probably different medications for different states, what we call emotional states. But the research has shown, whether it's anxiety or whether it's depression, that good sleeping patterns, good exercise, healthy eating, routines that have meaning for you, finding something that gives you enjoyment or finding something that gives you some level of pleasure, and hanging out with people that genuinely care for you and that you can be with in these difficult times is like medicine.
Yeah, like
it's
I
like
live
treatment.
on my own, so and I have done for quite a while. So, you know, I mean, church is good because it's like a family.
Yeah. Now that's difficult, isn't it? Because it requires kind of that extra organisation to try and connect or meet up with people. This is where, and I've been canning technology a bit today, but this is where technology can help, because even if it is a Zoom or even if it is FaceTime, while that's not the same as person-to-person connection, there is some connection that happens.
And right on that, we're very grateful. One of the folk here mentioned overseas children. Our family live in Maryland, between Washington and Baltimore, and we're just so grateful for FaceTime, especially during COVID. I haven't seen our three little granddaughters or my daughter and son-in-law for 3 years. So we're just so grateful. And it's our granddaughter's 15th birthday today. So we've prepared a little video that we're going to put up tonight, send to her, which is for her birthday, because it's now, I don't know what's the time now, it's in Washington, it's about, what is it? About 8 o'clock in the morning. So there you go. So you're right, thankfully for that. And it highlights again that vital need to connect. We're just designed to connect, and I think if we can sustain, I really appreciate the comment here, when we live by ourselves and depression dulls down and just knocks all that down, we need some pretty strong drive to do the very thing we don't feel like doing, and that's connecting. But that's the steps we need to take as we can. Any other comment? Where one, yeah. Have you got another for us?
No, if you've got another, it's fine.
Yeah.
I was just interested to know how each of you feel if like an existential perspective of anxiety is what you were explaining to just the last part. Do you see anxiety on a continuum where that existential perspective applies to anxiety from beginning to end, from not as severe to very severe? Or do you see a delineation in, yes, this is an existential anxiety because of the meaning disconnection or alienation? Or do you see that there are two distinct types where it's not all existential? Because it seems to me that no matter how bad it is, there's still the line that goes, you know, that meaningful bit, not just the horizontal, which is interestingly makes a cross. So I guess what I'm saying is all anxiety potentially of existential nature? You know, what are we here for? What's our meaning? What are we connected to on a very deep level? I mean, a monk in his cell might say, no, he's not alone. He's not disconnected, because he's perceiving his connection with that existential meaningfulness. So he's got it. It wouldn't matter if he was on a desert island. He wouldn't be lonely, the monk. But someone might be in the middle of New York and be lonely.
True.
Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's just quickly differentiate between being lonely and alone.
Yes.
And I think you're right.
Sorry,
And
yeah.
you've raised that nicely for us. So I can be out in my kayak on the lake all day and I'm not alone. So, sorry, I'm alone, but not lonely.
Yeah.
Because I know when I go home, Carol's there. Or if I've got a dog, the dog's going to welcome me home. There's somebody in my life. But if I can be at the footy, 80,000 screaming fans at the, the footy final, and I'm desperately alone, so desperately lonely. So you're right. We can be alone, but not lonely. And so having that sense of connectedness with something outside of ourselves is I think, available to us right across the lifespan. We may not be so conscious of it, Danny, early life, although we know that the average age for a commitment to a faith is about 12 or 13 years old. And there seems to be some research that the brain at that particular age tends to turn outwards. There's some growing research for that. So the average age for, particularly in the Christian church, for baptism is 12, 13. So there's something about that age where we become more aware of a need and a desire to connect at that existential step. So possibly as a younger person, they not be so, conscious of that. But I think through the rest of our lives, I think it's very much a part of reality.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think there are layers and there's a lot of overlap. So I wouldn't go as far to say that all anxiety has an what was that? Existential, that's it. I was going to say exponential. Existential component. But however, for example, if I'm bitten by a dog when I'm a child and I'm traumatized and then I develop anxiety, I don't know whether that is related to an existential issue. However, if over time I start to lose my own dignity and self-worth and I question myself and I become more and more disconnected from myself, then I think that has existential implications. So there's a lot of interaction and overlap, but I wouldn't go as far to say that all anxiety has an existential component.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our time's away. I just want to raise, Danny, something about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We know that when the soldiers came back from Vietnam, a lot of our Vietnam soldiers suffered terribly from PTSD, Afghanistan. With Vietnam, they were told, and I talked to actually a Vietnam vet, they brought them back at night time and they were told, don't say a word about it. And that was the very thing they needed to do. And a lot of our Vietnam vets suffered terribly. We know Afghanistan, it's the same. I have a very good personal friend who suffered a real tragedy. He was cared for Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme, and he took the kids cycling, a road bike. And he was coming home from a trip with the kids. One of the boys was lagging a bit behind, so he cycled a bit slower, caught up with him and chatted to him for a while, encouraged him, went off to join the rest of the group. He heard this noise, looked back, and a guy in a truck had dropped something on the floor. As he reached down to pick it up, he brought his wheel across and crushed this little boy up against the safety rail, and he died in my friend's arms. It really changed his life dramatically. And one day, Danny, he was walking, he sold the bike, sold the van, gave it away, changed careers, and he was walking along the street where he lived and he saw the van go past that he owned that he'd sold. He just collapsed on the side of the road and just sobbed. So, those kind of experiences have a profound effect. As you said, we're complex people, and the anxiety and that he felt under numerous circumstances triggered by that event. So as we said, we can be triggered by, and we carry that. So it's a key issue, and we thank you for being involved today. I didn't want to finish on that sad story, but we thank you for having us with you today, and we're here because you're here. So we thank you. If there's nothing else, no comments. Thank you. If there's nothing else, we might finish there, and we really appreciate your involvement today. And Danny, thank you.
Thank you, Trav. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'd have to say I could probably say don't worry about the clock, just keep going, because there was a whole bunch of stuff there that was personal to me, and I know that as I look around here, then there's some of the questions that people ask that that's a lot personal to a lot of us too. And I think if I had to take away anything from today, it would be, if you have anxiety, it's not such a bad thing. We all think, and I think sometimes when I have it, it's what's wrong with me? Why am I having this? Something's bad, but it's not bad, is it? It's a reaction to something. And I'll have to say, one of the other things I'll be proud of to take away today is that we have a good bunch of friends. And I think you guys here that have come along together, you're friends. If you have issues, then it's good to know that we have friends, we have family, that we can develop. I know it's all about relationships and having somebody that makes you feel valuable, and all the things that will happen to us if we have friends. And I know somebody asked me, well, how come I ended up in Singleton? Well, it was, we came up here to work, we had a look around and we said, there's a church there. That means instantly I have a dozen friends who are Adventists, who are think the same as me. And I think that's great. Thanks for coming along, you guys. And if you could come back tomorrow about the same time, that'd be good. Before we go, there's some